All right, hey everyone, what's up? Jammer here from Jammer's Wrestling Magazine Collection, and I have a unique video today. It's a video that I didn't actually think I'd ever make because I didn't think I'd own these wrestling magazines. I hummed and hawed at it like forever because I just wasn't sure if I wanted them. And so, little backstory, Joanne, who I talked about in that last video I did with her eBay account, what is it again? I have it written here, Treasure Chest 0114. She had ECW magazines, and she had all five, it looked like, and they were pretty decently priced, actually, for what they are. And I was like humming and hawing about it, and then I forgot that geez, this is probably like forever ago. I ended up, watching random stuff on eBay, and one of the things I watched was an ECW magazine lot that had the first three for like, I forget what it was. It was like $40 or best offer or something, and then, I got a cheaper rate. Like they said, here, we want to get rid of these, so I got the first three. And then I was like, well, if I got the first three, I got to get the last two. So I contacted Joanne. I got the last two. Now I have the complete collection of these. ECW, the magazines. I have all five. I believe there's only five. That's all I've ever seen. But here they are. I have them all. I was a huge fan of ECW growing up as a teenager. My first memory of ECW would have been, I think, early February 1994. It came on, so every night on a TV channel from Detroit, Michigan called WADL TV 38 from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday, they would air wrestling. And I was seeing Smoky Mountain Wrestling from, Knoxville, Tennessee, that Jim Cornette ran. I saw USWA Wrestling from Memphis, Tennessee, that Lawler and Jarrett were running. I would see IWCCW from New York that Angelo Savoldi was doing. And there was Global Wrestling Federation from Texas I was seeing. And even more random stuff like SAPW, which is down in like the Carolinas. They were trying to make Mid-Atlantic Wrestling a thing again down there with like making it look like it did in the early 80s with SAPW. And even Herb Abrams' UWF would show up sometimes. So, I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff, but never was there Eastern Championship Wrestling until one day it came on. And after reading about it in the magazines for, months, I was hooked. I was like, this is crazy. The music videos, the violence, the wrestling, the storylines, like this was amazing. I never saw anything like it. So I became a lifelong ECW fan, which I think a lot of wrestling fans, that happened, right? So in 1999, they come out with the magazine right here. This is the first one. I will go through some of these here to show you. So the cover's Taz, the ECW World Champion. And right off the bat, you get like ECW did crazy color and photos in their magazine. Like, look at this. This is like a look back at the past. So you can see guys who were there in this edition. And what there's Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert and Paulie Dangerously. And it's just and look how they're much bigger. Like if you take, so, I mean, take a normal size magazine. Okay, we'll take this one here. Like, look at the difference. Look at that. That's like, it's such a wide magazine. So when you put one of those freaking small boys against it, yeah, it's definitely, you're getting your money's worth. How much were these at the time? $7.95 Canadian. So, and then of course, and the photos, though, you had like they give us so many, like there's some sweet Rob Van Dam photos there. But back here, you got Francine photos. So if you're a Francine fan, which I was, you get to see that. There's the, I guess she was Tammy Lynn Bitch at the time, Dawn Marie. And of course, Tammy Lynn Sitch, aka Sunny, who doesn't look like that at all anymore if you've seen the recent photos that have hit the internet. So there's number 1. That's the premiere issue. I think that goes for pretty decent money. So I don't know how I got lucky that this person sold the first 3 so cheap to me. I'll take it. But if you do want the first issue, Joanne does have it on her eBay store. So go, if you really want it, check it out there. And I'm sure she'll give you a great deal on it. The deal I got for these 3 were too good to pass up. I mean, here's the second one, though. This is Lance Storm and Dawn Marie, Tammy Lynn Bitch, a.k.a. there on the cover. And again, there's Sid. But look at that. You get these. It's like very cool. It was very, again, ahead of its time. You didn't get magazines that had like cover photos like that where you can, you know, put on your wall and have a poster. So that's kind of neat. But again, there's just so much color in here. Super crazy. Jerry Lynn and RVD there. You got Tammy Lynn Bitch and Sabu back here. So the stories in these, here's Just Incredible. This is volume 1, number 3. Yeah, so this is October of 99. And they're talking about the pay-per-view in September. So they're actually pretty close to the date of things on here for when the magazine came out and what was going on at the time. Dreamer, Lance, and New Jack there. But anyway, so the stories in here are, of course, 100%. It seems like it's just, I don't want to say kayfabe because ECW kind of always blurred the lines between real and work when it came to wrestling. And I'm sure there's mentioning things in here of WWF or WCW at times. I would totally think that the way Paul Heyman ran things. But it's very homegrown, right? It's definitely like a WWF magazine or a WCW magazine. There you get some. They even have results of like house shows, which is kind of cool. But there's Steve Corino. It is neat though. These are pretty neat, I gotta say. This is the 4th one now. We got Rob Van Dam on the cover. And on the back there, it says Raven is back. But the funny thing is, I looked through this. I didn't see anything about Raven when I looked through it. There's Dawn Marie, Taz, and Danny Doring. So I don't know if it was just he entered and he came back fast. So they're like, put it on the cover quickly, you know, because in the next issue, you'll see Raven. But this is interesting, too, I want to point out when I was skimming through it. I haven't really read any of these yet. Taz re-signs with ECW. ECW announced August 11th that Taz has signed a contract to remain in the Federation for 3 more years. That was interesting. Oh, here we go. We'll talk about the World Wrestling Federation and World Championship Wrestling. So they do mention those names like I figured they would. The funny thing is, Taz, this was August 11th of 1999, and Taz was in the WWF January of 2000 for the Royal Rumble. So that had to have been a work signing to make people think Taz is staying. Because there was talk Taz was leaving. I remember that at the time. There was talk, was he going to be on the TNN show? Was he going to drop the title on the first TNN episode and then leave? Taz, of course, ended up dropping it at Anarchy Rules in September to Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka in a 3-way. And there's Balls and Paul. And then actually stayed for a while because he wrestled in November to Remember. Against Rob Van Dam in a television title match. So it looks like there's a fold out there of Dawn Marie if you want to, people want to pull that out. That's kind of neat. But yeah, this is these magazines are kind of neat. And of course they're advertising on here now TNN too, by the way, as you can see on the cover. So we get the TNN deal. This last one, I'm pretty sure this is the last one because I don't think I saw any after this one. Has Raven on it. And this is February 2000. And then the magazine got a lot skinnier here too, compared. Like, look. So there's definite. I guess they said we're not making much money doing these magazines. Let's get out while we can. But for the time being, this is very cool. These magazines. Wow, I still got the subscription thing in here. These magazines remind me of the old WoW magazines, those wrestling magazines. I don't know if anyone out there probably, there's something I should look into getting. I think Joanne has those actually, is the WoW magazines. I think it was called, was it something of wrestling? I forget what the WoW stood for, but I remember I had some of those magazines as a teenager, and they kind of, Bill Apter left the Stanley Weston magazines to pursue, working in that, because even Bill knew that the days of kayfabe wrestling magazines were dying out thanks to the internet. People wanted real news, real stories that were real, right? And those WoW magazines gave you those stories. Only problem is they would come out months, or even a month, we'll say, after the story already broke on the internet and people already heard about it. So the WoW magazines actually didn't last. They lasted maybe a year or two, I want to say. I know there's quite a bit of magazines out there of it, so probably 2 years. Probably 2-3 years, I'm guessing. And they got rebought out. They got bought out by Stanley Weston magazines. The Pro Wrestling Illustrated actually ended up buying WoW and bought the name and the right and all that stuff to it. So at the end, the kayfabe wrestling magazine won, right? The magazines that we knew from the dawn of time for wrestling magazines, that era won, and the fans didn't care to read about real stuff as time went on. They wanted the stories, and that's what sells, right? Storytelling sells. But for a brief moment in time, it was cool, and these ECW magazines do give you a little bit of the reality in there. Like I said, talking about WWF and WCW. Again, I never thought I'd own these. Never in a million years. But I'm kind of glad I do own them. They're very cool. They are. I didn't realize how cool they were. I don't remember seeing these when I was growing up at any of my variety store newsstands. And if they were there, they must have sold out fast. But none of my friends that I know of had any ECW magazines. So I'm going to say they probably didn't. Well, they had to have been in Canada. There's a Canadian price tag on it. But I don't know. I don't know why none of my friends had these. We all collected wrestling magazines, but not one of us had these. But anyways, I got them now, so that's all that matters. It's cool to have. I think my favorite cover out of these is actually the Rob Van Dam one. I think that, and that's just very cool. And I'm actually surprised it took them to the 4th issue to get RVD on the cover. I figured he would have been the second cover issue. He's the World Television Champ. It would have been cool. I mean, I understand Taz being on the premiere issue because he was the world champion. But it just sucks that guys like the franchise Shane Douglas left the company before he had a chance to make it on the cover of this magazine, because Shane Douglas was such a huge part of ECW when he was there both times. The first time when he was world champ, threw down the NWA title and did all that stuff and made ECW Extreme and all that and world title. And then when he came back from his WWF stint and had that amazing run as television champion, then another amazing run as world champion for like 2 years. So I don't know. It just sucks that a lot of guys left the company before the magazines came out. Again, the Dudley Boys should have been on the cover. Tommy Dreamer should have been on the cover. And they just never were, but you got 5 solid covers here of ECW, and that's kind of neat. So positives about these magazines: the colored photos. You get so much. You get so many posters. That is a positive. Negative, it didn't last long. 5 issues. That's the only negative I can think. I don't see why this couldn't have continued on. They're talking here about Guilty as Charged 2000. ECW ran until Guilty as Charged 2001. So there was another year there of guys like Rhino who could have made the cover, or Guys like Yoshihiro Tajiri or Super Crazy, or Mike Awesome, the ECW World Champion. So if there is any after this issue, number 5, I don't know. I haven't seen any pop up, unless my mind's drawing a blank here and there was one that I can't think of right now. But I'll double check. But as far as I know, I have them all. I have at least the first 5, and that's good enough for me for right now. If that's all there is, that's great. So anyways, watching this, what was your favorite ECW moment or memory or wrestler? For me, my favorite wrestler was the franchise Shane Douglas. My favorite memory, oh man, there's so many. Actually, one of my favorite memories is from the November to Remember '97, and there's 2 of them. One is Rob Van Dam selling that pile driver that Tommy Dreamer gave him, and Van Dam like bounced off Dreamer and like went so high in the air. The other one would be when Shane Douglas belly to belly Bam Bam Bigelow through the table and got the 1, 2, 3, and the Pittsburgh fans popped like crazy over it. That was awesome. And a cool moment, of course, was when Tommy Dreamer finally pinned Raven, and the lights go off and they come on, and it's Rob Van Dam. Then they go off, they come on. It's Sabu. They go off, they go on. It's Jerry the King Lawler from the WWF. So that was something no one saw coming, and it was very cool. But yeah, there's so many memories, so many moments of this company. For a little company that ran from 1992, after Tri-State Wrestling closed its doors in Philadelphia. So ECW ran from 1992. It went from being Eastern Championship Wrestling to NWA Eastern Championship Wrestling, then to Extreme Championship Wrestling, and it's finally closed its doors in early 2001. I think it was like January was they did the pay-per-view. I think they did a few house shows or whatever you want to call it afterwards. And that was it until 2005 when Vince McMahon brought it back to make money for his company. But yeah, for a company that wasn't even around 10 years, so many memories, so many moments, stands the test of time. No other wrestling company can say that. Not the UWF back in the 80s, not any of those indies promotions that tried to copy ECW, like XPW or Changer Wrestling, whatever that company is. None of those. None of those are going to have the same effect ECW had on wrestling and on society in general. Honestly, that's true. It really is. I mean, a lot of people know of certain music because of ECW. You heard Enter Sandman because the Sandman came down to it. You know, you heard Come Out and Play by the Offspring because Raven came out to it. You heard Walk by Pantera because Rob Van Dam came out to it. So everything changed with the help of ECW. And that's a bold statement to make, but I think a lot of wrestling fans would agree on that. So here it is, ECW, the magazines. Go out and get them. Check out Joanne's page at Treasure Chest 0114, her eBay page. If you want some of these, they're there. So snag them, get them. Again, it's a Canadian eBay store, so keep that in mind for anyone who's watching this. If you're Canadian, it's probably the best bet to get them from her. Americans, maybe not so much. It might cost with the shipping and whatnot, but or the UK people. But yeah, so here it is. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the new subscribers and the comments lately and everything. I appreciate it. It's been fun interacting with you guys. And until I do another video, I'll talk to you guys later.